So at times, as with many conditions, depression might look like a Vata balance to you, but I don't want you to get too thrown by that. So, because if you stick with just a Vata balancing exclusively, you're probably not going to see long-term results. Your client will report feeling better, right? Because we always feel better when our Vata is balanced for short periods of time, but it's not going to stick. The other thing is that some kapha imbalanced individuals will also be Vata balanced, super common. So they'll be depressed, but they'll also be anxious. So if you've decided, or your clients come in like, I am depressed, I have a diagnosis, I'm a depressed person, it's important you stay on the kapha balancing depression road long enough to see results. And you can still treat the anxiety, work with the anxiety, but you got to be careful not to just sort of fall into that and just be doing all Vata balancing all the time, because it's probably not going to work to really basically cure them if that's what you're going for. So some other techniques that have worked well, just the way I think about it, right? It's moving prana up through the chakras and holding prana in the body, like those two concepts, building energy, moving energy up. Often the second, third, and fourth chakra, right? The fourth chakra is the heart, second is the sort of creative sexual center, and third is that pitta belly center. They all will need to be attended to. So I found that using Mula Bandha can really help with this. You could think of it as too much apana, downward flowing prana, getting out. So you're sort of locking it up at the bottom. I sometimes use the technique of Ujjayi breath and then add Mula Bandha, then add some pauses using the Mula Bandha and the Jalandhara Bandha. Both pauses, so you're getting that full breath, but the Mula Bandha's in and up and staying there. My teacher described this with the pauses as learning to hold prana so you don't have a leaky boat. So a lot of depressed people, this is the problem. Prana is just kind of like spilling out. They can't build energy. So this will help build vitality. Mula Bandha work, always you can think vitality there. And it'll help balance the kapha in their heart, so it's not just kind of like dissipating all over the place. You could also work with the chakra sounds we used in previous lessons for those chakras, might help. You could do the lower chakras and work up to the heart. I wouldn't get too much into these upper chakras. Might feel good at the moment, but again, that kind of work isn't really going to help somebody sort of gain stamina, right? You should already have energy if you're doing that kind of work. So stay lower, but up to the heart. It doesn't have to just be the lower chakras. Other possibilities, meditation for heart opening, because we've got a heart problem. Meditation will help you, help them find ananda, which is important. Body scan, kind of yoga nidra, to develop awareness of the physical and the pranic body, and then staying there, because that will help build prana. If you're working with this technique, just be sure to keep it physical and energetic. Maybe use visualization, so the mind is guided and not left to disperse and do its own thing. And the other thing would be to get them, if you can, if it's an option, get your client into a class setting, really encourage that, because all contact with others in positive environments is indicated. So get them to class, get them to church, get them to a knitting group, anywhere that they like it and they're connecting, then you want to do that. So just make sure it's a positive thing and not going out drinking, with negative people, for instance, which comes up a lot of times, coworkers and stuff. It's fine if they like it, but just don't let them do it as much. Don't encourage it as much if you're not seeing it as a real positive thing for them. And then finally, you want to remind your client that they're doing well just by showing up, because depression often comes with low self-esteem and self-doubt. And you need to let your client know that they're okay and that they have the ability to overcome this, and that the sort of pauses or inability to do things here and there is normal, and that's all right. You need to kind of hold that outside perspective and be like, you're doing well, you're showing up here, you're working on it, et cetera, et cetera. You have to cheerlead them the entire time. And you're going to hold that space for them until they can do it for themselves. So that's your goal. So you're not trying to make them dependent on you in the long run, but there's a short term, really holding on to depressed clients. You have to be committed to work with depressed people. It's not sort of an ad hoc thing. It's not like a hip. We're like, oh, let's do some sessions, see if it helps you. I'll show you some exercises. It's not that, right? Usually these clients you're going to lock into, and you have to kind of stay with them, make sure they come to their appointments, make sure you're scheduled correctly. You can't be flaky yourself. You have to be very, very steady, right? You're trying to get them to be steady and build energy, and you have to be steady too. So the practice I want to share with you is a practice that was developed for a woman in her mid-60s in my practice who was working with depression. She was medicated. She had good and bad days. Bad days consisted of her not being able to do a lot. She liked yoga and had a spiritual teacher who she hadn't seen too many times but listened to recordings of often. So that was good, that connection. She was a grandmother, and that seemed to have lifted her when she had the opportunity to be with family. So I sort of encouraged all those connections. So let's take a look at what her practice ended up as. This was a little bit to get here, but I thought I'd share with you what it ended up looking like. So most of this asana here was done to a video I made her, because again, that guided thing, right? So we did a video, and so as we changed her practice here and there, I would redo the video, and I do that right in the session with my iPhone. I would have her either film me or I'd film her doing it and talking her through it, so then she'd have something to follow. It's really easy to do with any kind of camera. It doesn't have to be good quality, really. People don't care. So don't worry about that. It's actually a really nice service to be able to email someone a video. Let's see here. So you have number 1 here, moving and breathing in child's pose, like warming up right with the breath, moving the body up and down. Then I had her do cat-cow about 8 times. And then Tadasana, again, breathing, inhaling and exhaling. Now, Tadasana with the arms, and I had her doing that breathing pattern where you hold the belly in. So it wasn't a relaxing breath, but more of an energizing breath, but the breath is moving up, and she's doing a little bit of a back bend. And then number 4 here is Tadasana with palms in front of the heart. A little affirmation, may my heart be open, may I be steady and strong. So you're sort of putting that into her Mayo Vijna Ananda, right? Boom, 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 like programming herself. That's an intention we came up with together that she liked. So that could be anything that your client identifies with that has the same meanings. But we're working on that strength and steadiness, so I thought that would be nice. Then we have Warrior 2, 6 breaths holding it, so just nice, steady, sort of not, she wasn't super in shape or anything, so I had her working a little bit, but not a lot. Then triangle pose for 6 breaths on both sides. Now, this particular client had some knee stuff, so I wanted to strengthen her quadriceps a little bit, right, and stretch her hamstrings, which seemed to be needed, but I didn't want to, spend too much time on that because her knees sometimes would hurt. So we just did these 2, and those actually helped her quite a bit over time. Then we went to the ground. We did down dog, and we held that again. So not real. It's 6 breaths, but it's not super focused on the breath. It was just a way to time it, basically, and make sure she kept breathing. A little rest in child's pose, and then a little more strength down boat, right? So again, back bend and building that steadiness. Then another rest in child's pose, and then a staff pose, right? Some strength. Had her flexing her feet, right? So I'm working on some of her physical complaints, calves and hamstrings, as well as this kind of like upright, like non-depressed, heart open, like posture. And then I went for Paschimottanasana because I'm trying to keep the asana kind of balanced, forward bends, back bends, twisting. I want to make sure that her system, part of it is to keep the prana, moving properly. So one of the advantages to asana, as we all know because we do it, is that, so I didn't want to skip anything. So don't overthink it, just give them some sort of balanced thing. So I did Paschimottanasana as a forward bend, and then a seated twist, right? And again, that's working with the breath and extending the spine. In the seating twist, I had her really thinking of keeping her chest open, so not so much with the cranking and the twist, but really heart open there. And then we did bridge, another kind of heart opener plus back bend plus I had her holding it. She started at 6 breaths or maybe even less, and then we worked to hold 12 breaths. So this is kind of also our stamina pose. Then we have Apanasana to counter that, right? Kind of slow it down and regulate the apana, which I always figure is a good thing because whether the apana is too much or too little, apanasana usually helps regulate, has been my experience. So I had her do that, and then also, it was relaxing to the lower back, which she had some complaints on. And then Shavasana, I did it. It was 7 minutes long. It was like a guided, but like I said, a guided body scan, and then a little into the breath, and then enough talking that we're not silent very long. And in her awareness, it's like a mindfulness practice. She's in her body the entire time. And then I have some breathing practices and mula bandha and stuff. She would either do this after if she had time, but a lot of times she did this standalone, and a lot of times she did her asana one day and this another day, which worked out really well. I just started with regular, complete 3-part breath, just kind of warm up her breathing, make sure she's taking full breaths. Some Kapalabhati to move the energy up a little bit, get that kapha moving, so we did that. And then we followed that with Ujjayi breath, and this was like a little bit of a longer process with Ujjayi breath. Like I said, then we added Mula Bandha, right? And then we, with the Mula Bandha, did some pausing. I didn't with her use the chin lock. This seemed to be enough, and the breathing was a little tricky for her, so we just ended up with Mula Bandha, so you might end up there. But she ended up with a really good Mula Bandha practice, and she reported feeling like energy moving up from that practice, which is always ideal. And then I gave her a choice to sit still for a few minutes, or to chant and chant out loud. And what she would usually choose to do, sometimes she'd sit still, she'd chant with Krishna Das, she'd pull up a couple tracks. And she enjoyed that. She found a couple she really liked, and she'd just chant like she was at kirtan. She'd chant pretty loud. And she reported that made her feel kind of just happy. So I was really happy about that. And then other days she would just sit still. So that's the practice I gave to her. You could see there's a lot of different ways you could go with this, but this is what a depression sequence might look like. I hope this was beneficial and helpful to you. Thank you so much. Om Shanti. Om Peace.